Okay, hello everyone, welcome to Blender Boys Blender tutorial. In this one, we are going to create a textured wallpaper. So for that, let's look at some reference images. So here is a nice minimalistic looking textured wallpaper, right? So it's currently white and there are only few shades of white present in this. It's not very much exciting. So in this image, we can find like there is a like it's not just like a 2D thing. It's like we are having a feeling that it's being 3D, right? In this one, that kind of feeling is more intense, but all these things are pretty plain. These things are a bit colorful, but they're not too exciting. So like just including all these aspects, we are trying to create a wallpaper, textured 3D wallpaper, such that it would be a bit colorful. So in order to do that, let's directly jump into the Blender. So this is a basic Blender default setup. Here on the bottom left corner, you can see like what keys am I pressing, and such that you can be checking like what's happening here. So yeah, let's delete this default lamp by clicking. After deleting the lamp, we can directly go to the geometry nodes tab over here. In this geometry nodes tab, we will be selecting the cube, and currently we do not need this window, so let's just close it by just dragging it to the left side, and we can just add a geometry node thing by clicking new over there. So we can just directly cut this node setup. We won't be able to see the cube, but yeah, we can start adding a grid. If we can directly go through the options, or we can directly just search for the option grid and we can enter it. Here is the grid node, and we can connect these two nodes. Here we are finding a grid. So the size is currently 1 by 1. We can just make it 5 by 5. So here the number of vertices on x direction and y direction, we can just currently make it to 500. Later we will be changing this. So in this setup, we want to just create a texture, right? So we want to just create a texture where we should be having a 3D feeling. So for that, there is a node called Voronoi texture. So like we can click Shift A, and from here we can just see in the texture one, there is a node called Voronoi texture, and we added this texture over here. So because with this texture we'll be able to create a 3D surface over here. So how can I know that we have to create this particular texture? So for example, there is a thing called Voronoi. I'll be linking this in the description below. So this is once if we go through the page, we can just clearly understand like what's going on over here, and like there's a Voronoi diagram over here. So like once people go into this, like it's like mathematical stuff. If people are interested, they can go to this. But basically what it's trying to create is a texture where it is based on different edges. So before visualizing it, we'll be just creating another node. So that node is called set position node. So we can just search it and add a set position node over here, and just drop between these two nodes. And here we can just offset the position. So let's say here we can just drag this distance thing into the offset. So here we can see there is something happening. So it has been changed, but it's being changed in all the 3 directions, X, Y, and Z. So we do not want that. So we'll just add another node, and from this vector tab where it says combine X, Y, Z. So in this combine X, Y, Z, so we can drag the output from here in the Z direction, and we can connect these two things. What it does is it only distorts in only Z direction. So here we can see a different texture over here. So after connecting this, we can change how this thing looks, right? So after like we can, in this option there is a thing called distance to edge. So as shown previously in the Wikipedia page, if you read through that and go through the Blender manual, one can see like what this thing does. So let's say we are just fixing, let's say scale to 2, and that's it. So here we can see that there is a texture, right? And in this thing, fine, we are trying to get a similar texture what we want to get. but here there is some noise over here, so these lines are not looking perfectly right. So let's add a set smooth. So we can just search for smooth and we can add this node in this direction. So as you can see the difference over here, before the node is there, these are the lines, how these are looking. If we just add into it, how these it will look smoother. So after this now we could be adding material to it. So we can directly jump to the shading tab. In this shading tab we can see how we can see a material preview. So let's just add something, a random color over here. Let's add yellow over here. Okay, and we are not able to see any changes over here. The reason is we have to go back to the geometry nodes. In this one there is a node called, just search like material, and here we can see a set material. So we'll be adding the set material just before the output, and here in this option we can find any material. So there is only single material in this thing, we'll be selecting it. So after selecting it, and if we just go to the material preview, we can see that that particular material has been applied to this object. Yes, so exactly we can go back to the layout. We can as well as change it into material view. Here if we just click 0, this is a view like which we get. So instead of getting this view, what we can do is we can select this camera, and we can make the location like say 20, these two as 0. So the camera will be placed on the x-axis, and we can set the rotation as like 90, 0 and 90. So we'll be looking in this x-axis view. So this is the view which we get. So we want this particular object to be rotated in the x direction 90 degrees, such that when we go through the camera view, it's like perpendicular to it, right? So yeah, for the camera option, by clicking it, we can just manually change like what kind of thing. So we can just adjust the distance from here, and in this thing we can, okay, this particular position is fine, we can go back. But everything is like a single plain color, and we do not want that, because in the reference images, if you see that there is a slight variation of color between one thing to another. Here you can see the color variation because of the light, but we could manually add it from the shaders option. So here if we can see it over here from this view, there is a single principal BSDF. What we can do is we can minimize it, we can duplicate this thing, and we can add a new node. That node is like the mix shader node, and in this node we'll be adding two different colors, this and this, right? And in this one, let us select another color. Let's say let us select an orangish color. Okay, currently we have both the colors, but those are like mixed. We want it to differentiate, so we can do that by adding from the input node. From the input node we can add texture coordinate. So this thing is added. So from this normal thing, so what we are trying to do is all the different faces are phased up in different directions. So we are going to get the normals, like we are going to select like from in which direction those things are facing, and from that we will be able to get, based on the direction which it is facing, we will be able to assign a color to it. So here we can see let us add another thing like separate XYZ. So what we are doing is from the normal, we will be connecting this normal to this vector. So the normal information is loaded here, and in the factor thing we will be adding a z, a single thing to the factor. Here you can see, yeah, we have pretty much changed the colors based on the direction which the faces are facing, but it is not desirable, because here you can see the lines are highlighted, only the things which are faced in only one direction. I mean, these things are not good. So if we just change it to like another, let's say y direction, now there is a small difference you can see. So some of the things which are facing in one direction, they have one color, which are facing in different direction, they're having different colors. So we can just test it by like just making it to a different color. See, you can see how these things change. Okay, let's just make this thing to the previous setup. I hope these colors are fine. And now as these things are fixed, we can go back to the layout, but we can still see these things. It's like a blurred image. So what we can do is we can directly go to the geometry nodes tab, and we can increase the grid size. So the reason we didn't do this before is because if we increase it in the very beginning based on the computer's configuration, some systems might get slow. So if we do it in the last, so all the workflow will be smoother. So we can just change it to 1000 vertices, let's say, suppose. Be careful, if you increase this size too long, your computer might crash. So we can go back to the layout, and in this layout, yeah, we can see this this scene is like pretty much okay. What we can add is like we can add few lights. So by shift A, like we can just add a light. We can add an area light over here, and in for this thing, let's go to this top view and drag this over here and duplicate it and create another lamp over here too. And in this view, let's rotate this in this direction, and let's rotate this lamp in this direction as well. Let's make sure that we just put it above, and even this one. So yeah, these things are pretty much okay. What we can do, even this thing, rotate it in such that it faces this the plane, even this one. And in the properties tab of the light, we can just change the color to an orangish one, and we can change the color to somewhat a slight variation to it. In order to see the changes, you have to go to the rendered view. The lights are pretty the power is quite low. If we just change it to, let's say, 100, now it's getting brighter. Let's make this into 500, and even let's make this power to 500. We can actually change how it looks like. I mean, if you go into this, if you feel this is pretty awkward, we can just change the lightings. So these lightings, you're just seeing these things because it would be better if you just go to the change it in the cycles thing. So we can go to the render tab, and here we can select cycles. And after selecting it, if GPU is supported, just go to the GPU option, because that would be faster. And here you can see in the viewport, let's just make it smaller, like it would such that it would be faster, but we won't be changing the render settings. So this thing looks pretty fine, or else we can just bump it to 1000 and check how that feels like. Yeah, so this is the basic thing which you will be getting. And if you feel that this depth is too much, what we can do is we can just select this thing and scale it in the X direction. Yeah, after scaling it in the X direction, if you go back to the view, we can see that 3D feel has been reduced. So this is a kind of texture which we get from here before rendering it. So we can just change the samples over here. So like 1024 samples are more than enough for this kinds of thing, because there's no much detail in it. If you want to bump up this number of samples, it would be better, but it's up to you. Like it's a trade-off between the time and the quality. So here the render is completed. We can go ahead and save the image. So thank you for watching the tutorial till now. So please consider liking and sharing and subscribing. Thank you.